It's been 4 years now that Nigerian youth in their thousands protested across Nigeria on the brutality of the police. 4 years after, protesters say their demands for a better police and good governance are yet to be met. Frank Tietie, lawyer and a Rise analyst, joins us to look at this developing story. Very warm welcome to Newsnight, Frank. It's 4 years. And how time flies.
Indeed.
And quite a number of the protesters are said to still be in custody 4 years after the reports of the various panels set up, by states and even the federal government are yet to be released. Why?
Because of who we are, and then sadly 4 years that passed so quickly still hold a lot of disappointment, not only for those who protested, not only for the memories of those who died and those who actually, worked so hard to see that there could be some police reforms or the other. I think it's the entire country that is reeling from the pain that the country had to go through that kind of horrendous moment. Yet 4 years after, whether it was sacrificial, whether it was going to the extent of proving to the government of the day that what it was doing, particularly with the law enforcement, police arm, wasn't for the best of the country. And to think 4 years later, the police has not even learnt the lessons, learnt any lessons, I would say, and we still have records of police brutality and high-handedness and violations of human rights across the entire country. Well, it's a good thing that the government did respond with some forms of panels of inquiries, committees and all of that. But it seems as if all of that was like playing to the gallery so that the rest of the world watching will think that the government was trying to do the right thing. But the commitment to putting to work the recommendations of those panels of inquiry is a different thing entirely, and it has been, a show of disappointment, especially for someone like me. I participated in the NSAS panel that was put together, that was inaugurated in the FCT, chaired by the retired Justice of the Supreme Court, and many copious recommendations were made, which included the previous Tony Ojukwu report, which recommended along with the prosecution of SARS policemen that were found wanting, together with the establishment of state police, so that there can be greater local responsibility of policing system in our country. But we haven't seen any move in that regard.
Well, you just said it, because I was going to ask that what lessons have been learned here. Is it by the police or even the youth? Who are the losers here?
Nigeria, of course, loses, and then we also have a lot of young persons who are losing hope, losing faith in this country. If you notice the Japa syndrome that has hit us in the last 2-3 years, it's as a result of the fact that, there's a growing sense of despondency on the part of our young people. Now, when the Western countries, or probably more stable economies that Nigerians run to, are actually not more resource rich more than Nigeria. But the problem is that they have a stable and certain socio-economic system. That is the outcome of the rule of law. But we've seen law enforcers, so police, for example, that is supposed to be the chief law enforcement barometer in this country, being the chief lawbreaker. And it's as a result of the fact that one recommendation of the NSAS panel in Abuja recommended is, investment in the training of police officers, meaning that they should actually understand the basics of, not only how to handle firearms and the rules that guide or the discretion in the use of firearms, but in issues like human rights, to realize that the police, first and foremost, must be stronger than those who want to break the law. And we're talking about armed robbers, kidnappers, and the rest of them, but must also be sensitive to a point where it understands that it is offering service to the people. So the police force ought to be service-oriented, and that's the mindset every single policeman should have.
And today, in commemoration of the NSAS protest at the Lekki toll gate, some of the motley crowd of protesters who gathered there in memory of those who died there and during the protest all over the country were arrested again. Was that necessary? Was it necessary for the police to fire tear gas at peaceful demonstration or observation, marking a milestone at the Lekki
I think
toll
what
gates?
categorizes us as a third world country is not necessarily because we're not a rich country, we're a poorly managed country, but what really makes us a backward country, so to speak, is an issue of mentality. Fela Anikulapo Kuti has said always that if the teacher that taught us democracy taught us nonsense, because if the way we practice democracy is not the way it should be, the persons we copied it from should be able to tell us that that's not how to practice democracy. The principle of democracy, two twin cardinal principles of democracy: free speech and the right to choose leaders. And so why do we constantly have leaders that are afraid of citizens that want to express themselves, and forgetting that freedom of speech is what really guarantees stability of government? Because people would not take up arms in protest. People will not take up arms to change the system so long as they are able to voice their dissatisfaction against the government. Unfortunately, we do not understand why those who have the responsibility of the state to govern the state often think that it is their private property, and they do everything possible to stifle every form of opposition, to the extent that they wouldn't even allow citizens to express how bad they feel about the protesters who died 4 years ago. I mean, this kind of palpable fear on the part of those who lead us is unnecessary. The truth about it is that it is better when Nigerians are given the right to criticize and to often always express themselves, to say that, look, in condemning whatever they choose to condemn, a government should be strong enough to accept that its authority is based on the legitimacy that it won an election, and not constantly deploying force all the time to maintain itself in power.
Even the officers and men deployed, to maintain law and order are badly treated by the society.
Of course,
when you look at their welfare. Have you been to the average police station? There's no lights, there's no operational vehicle. Even in the FCT here, I challenged the Commissioner of Police to come out and tell us.
Let's understand that it's a question of resources. Yeah. First, it's a question of resources. But when you say that the police, of course, part of the recommendations of the NSAS panel is that there should be adequate remuneration for police officers. It should be reviewed, and much has been done in recent times anyway. But it's a question of mindset. Beyond that, you see, the mindset of the average policeman could be described in twofold. First, he is there to protect the establishment, and two, to exploit the opportunity he has as a uniformed person. And that exploitation moves on to the mentality of extortion. So you see,
have you looked at his own battered state and the rest, and psychologically pigeonhole it to what a lot of Nigerians are going through?
Of course, it's a reflection of the hardship we are going through. It's also a reflection of the dysfunctionality of the Nigerian society. But if we are dealing specifically with the NSAS protest and the things that led to it, police high-handedness and human rights violation, and the perception of the average Nigerian that the police is is first probably an enemy to him first, on that he only responds to protecting those in power. So the policeman, the mentality of the policeman is that he is there to also survive. That's why he wouldn't want to ordinarily put himself in the harm's way just because he also wants to leave. So it's a problem that is facing us as a country that requires a massive cultural reorientation, where we now understand that we need to build a country for tomorrow. But as it is, this survivalist mentality also affects not only the police but generally, and in that case they begin to respond by first in a self-centered approach, and that's the reason why they carry out this extortionist methodology towards citizens, when you go to the police or station, or whether you're on the highway, whichever. But you see, that is a reflection of the fact that the policeman doesn't see himself as being cared for enough by the federal government of Nigeria.
Is it all that bad, you know, the way you've painted the police, you know, the kind of heroics they've performed in international duties like United Nations peacekeeping efforts? I remember, well, you probably, I don't know where you were then, when the police, after the Civil War, arrested notorious armed robbers like Oyenusi, Mighty Joseph.
I don't know whether I was aware, but I was in Benin when Lawrence Anini was also
that arrested. Was latter day.
Yeah, of course. So that look, don't take it away. We don't have any other police but the Nigerian police. So we actually, as citizens, must do everything we can to support them. However, whenever you see all of these bad acts by the police members of the police force,
they are condemnable.
You know, they're not only condemned. You find the police, you know, high authority, not, you know, saying that these are bad eggs. That's the word they use, and then they often meet some form of discipline against them. Some of them are given ordinary room trial and summarily dismissed and all of that. You see, it's a huge tax. Nevertheless, the reality is that the Nigerian police has been operating in the dysfunctional society that we have, and to that extent, we haven't seen that much improvement, despite 4 years of this NSAS infamous shooting at what do you call it, at Lekki Tollgate, and then the very many panels of inquiry reports. My expectation would have been that this government had very many golden opportunities. Nigerians are very easy to please. For example, if President Tinubu had made police reforms, and I'm thinking that they are actually working on it, because if you think of the bill for state police that's been actually they're working on. But if you had seen a president that was eager to decentralize police management in this country, Nigerians will begin to see that it is not really about the abuse of the police. Well, take it for example, because of the fear that state police will create some form of political crisis. Imagining if Sim Fubara as governor is controlling one form of police force, and then against challenging the police force that is said to be federal, there'll be total crisis. However, the contestation and the contest, I would say, between the federal police and the state police should be how to actually please the citizens, how to keep them safe, how to comply and conform with law. So it's expected that first do the right thing, and then we can take care of the exceptions and the problems that can flow from it. So the recommendation that in terms of ensuring that there is police reforms, let us have state police first. Let us even have local government police force, so that there can be a direct responsibility of those political appointees, persons who have been elected by way of elections by the people, to now take responsibility for protecting life and property. In this case, you can easily just blame Abuja for whatever is happening in Kafancha or is happening far away in Ugeli and all sort of things. And then the irresponsibility grows, and then the buck passing grows, and then ultimately citizens suffer. And then we have policemen so far from control and command and control, and then they misbehave and violate human rights. And that's the problem we're having.
I like the way you called Ugele, because that was the genesis of the
of the whole thing. Unfortunately, that's my home place.
Well, thanks so very much. Law and order must prevail at all times, but it must be enforced dispassionately and
with a service mentality.
Absolutely.
With a sense that you owe the Nigerian people a better life, and that we are building a country, and then we don't need to be running away to other places. What do they have that we don't have?
Absolutely. Here? Thanks so very much. Frank Tietie, a Rise analyst, for joining us on Newsnight.